You're here because you hate backlashes as much as I do. So what I'm gonna do is walk you through that. One, if you do get a backlash, how to get it out the easy way. Two, I'm gonna share with you how to avoid getting them in the first place by understanding your two built-in braking systems on your baitcaster and training your third. All right, let's go. So first, let's talk about why you get backlashes, how they occur. And I think this is really important to understand why they occur so you can avoid it moving forward. So essentially what happens whenever you cast your lure, the second that lure leaves the end of your rod tip, it starts to slow down. It's hitting resistance from the wind and obviously stopping whenever the lure hits the water. The problem is at the beginning of your cast, you set this spool into motion and it's spinning incredibly fast and it's not slowing down at the same rate of speed as your lure is as it gets resistance from the wind. And being that that line has nowhere to go, it starts to fluff up within your baitcaster, creating that backlash. So essentially you're gonna have typically one of two braking systems on your baitcaster. Either you're gonna have a centrifugal braking system, which on my Shimano SLX 150, when you open this up, you'll see a variety of different brake pads. Right now, these are in the off position, so they're not gonna provide any brake for me. But if we're going to engage them, all I gotta do is kind of click them down. And what happens is when this acts like a centrifuge, whenever this starts spinning really fast, and those little plastic brake pads are gonna rub on the inside of this plate here, causing friction, slowing down your spool. And the other type of braking system, which you can tell really easily from the outside, because magnetic brakes can be adjusted from the outside. And how these work, when you open them up, you can see the magnets on the inside, and instead of using friction like the brake pads do on your centrifugal brakes, these use opposing magnetic forces to create resistance to slow down your spool. And as you click this to the left and to the right, this is going to make these magnets get either closer or further away from your spool, and that's how you can fine tune the amount of resistance that you want on your spool. Now, the reason I like mag brakes over centrifugal brakes is that I only hit 6 options here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 brake pads up or down. The beauty about mag brakes is a lot of times I've seen options between 1 to 10 different clicks as far as how close or how far apart those magnets are. I've seen 1 to 20 and even 1 to 40, allowing you to really fine tune how much brake or how much resistance that you want. Now, the mag brakes and centrifugal brakes are the first braking system within your baitcaster. However, there's a second braking system, and I'm going to show you how to adjust your mag brakes and your centrifugal brakes here in just a minute, especially for if you're starting to use the baitcaster. But now we're going to talk about the other braking system, which is this knob right here, and it's called the spool tension knob. And so how this works is whenever you turn this clockwise, it's going to provide pressure or tension against the end of your spindle. If I were to take the spindle out, which I'll go ahead and do that for you real fast. So if this were still to be down there, whenever you turn this to the right, it's going to provide pressure to the end of that spindle, causing a little bit of friction, causing a break on your spool. Also with the spool tensioner knob, sometimes if you notice there's any play, and hear that knocking back and forth with your spool on the side, that means your spool tensioner knob is not adjusted. So go ahead and click that to the right until you feel no more play. This is really off. There you go. So you feel no more play in your spool. You might be thinking, especially if you're new to baitcasters, why in the world are the two braking systems on one baitcaster? Well, what I want you to do kind of in your mind is on the spectrum from 0 to 100, I want you to divide up your cast, with 0 being the second that lure leaves your rod and 100 being when it hits the water. And so whenever you cast your lure, when you have your thumb on your line, it's called feathering. If you start to feel your line fluff up within the first 70% or so of your cast, that's when you should signal to you that you need to adjust your mag brakes or your centrifugal brakes. However, if you feel that line start to fluff up toward the end of your cast, around the last 30%, that's when you're gonna need to adjust your spool tension knob. Now, if you're starting out, you might be thinking, well, where do I start off setting this? And I recommend setting your brakes at around 60%. So for your mag brakes, it's gonna be really easy. You just kind of find 50% and then kind of ratchet up just a little bit to 60%. Same thing here, it's a little more difficult because you only have limited options. And keep in mind, whenever you activate your centrifugal brakes, make sure you activate the brakes that are opposite one another. So being that it's spinning really, really fast, you don't want those to be uneven. And here's the thing, there's a lot of videos out there where guys are like, oh, ratchet up your brakes, when you're beginning to 100 on your spool tensioner and your mag brakes. And I think that's a really bad idea for a couple of reasons. One, you're gonna have horrible distance, horrible accuracy, and it's really gonna be prohibitive to fishing. And two, you're not giving the opportunity to train or educate your thumb, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now that you have your mag or non-mag brakes at around 60%, how do you adjust your spool tensioner knob? And this is what I recommend. So put your line on and your lure, whatever your lure that you're using, and put it at a 45-degree angle and hit your push button clutch. And what should happen is your lure should be slowly dropping as you kind of ratchet back your spool tensioner knob. And the idea is when that lure hits the ground, that your spool stops spinning, because that's how backlashes are made. So you want to be able to tighten that up if it can still continue continues to spin. Now here's the thing with that. Every time that you change out a lure that is a different weight, you're going to want to adjust your spool tensioner knob. Now just remember, anytime you use the braking systems, both your mag or non-mag or your spool tensioner knob, you're going to be sacrificing distance and accuracy. But the idea is with these braking systems, they're kind of a safety net for you to learn your baitcaster, especially starting out. Now the idea is that over time you start to ratchet back the use of the braking systems that are built in, and you start to educate and train your thumb to do for you what your brakes did at the beginning when you were learning. That is called feathering, and that's why I recommend starting at 60%, not ratcheting these things up to 100% brakes, because you're never going to be able to train your thumb if you're solely relying on your braking systems to do it for you. Accidents, sometimes the backlashes will still happen from time to time, so I have a video on how to easily get those out, and it's not getting your fingers in and picking it out. It's actually a really cool way. So if you're interested in how to get those backlashes out easily without losing a lot of that expensive line, go ahead and hit that video right there.